Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to Willow Creek Reservoir, near the Sun River in Teton County, Montana. The river is a classic Montana prairie river with slow currents that form oxbows, granting fly fishermen promising fishing holes to cast their flies in pursuit of rainbow trout. The elevation is high at around 4,000 feet, and the banks of the river are lined with cottonwood and willow stands, creating a picturesque beauty not offered by many other locations. About 20 miles upstream, the Sun River starts in the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, which preserves 1.5 million acres of forest and is comprised of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Area, the Scapegoat Wilderness Area, and the Great Bear Wilderness Area. Legislation passed in 1964 set it aside to preserve its wild character and habitat. This wilderness complex has always been a stronghold of grizzly bears, and now the massive predators have moved down from the mountains and settled into the riparian zones along the Sun River. When examined by satellite image, the area around Willow Creek Reservoir looks like one of the least likely places you'd find grizzly bears. The high plains with their rolling hills of sagebrush don't seem to provide any food for the big bears, but looks can be deceiving, and grizzly bears are always surprising. On the weekend of Sunday, May 17, 2020, Matthew Churchman, his wife Laura, and their daughter Ella were enjoying a fly fishing trip with Blackfoot River Outfitters. Matthew worked for the company and managed their shop in Missoula. Along with the Churchmans were the company owner, John Herzer, and his companion Terry Raugland. The group had picked up another couple, Lisa, and her companion whom we'll call Scott, which rounded out their fishing expedition at 7 people in total. The expedition had floated down the Sun River for a few days, catching trout and enjoying the peace and quiet for which the area is known. By Sunday, they had woken up and devoured breakfast and gulped down warm coffee before packing their gear into rafts for another day's float. It may have been the coffee, but before launching the boats, Matthew felt the call of nature. He walked a few yards into the willows to relieve himself. At about 35 yards to his right, Raugland was beginning to put her waders on and saw some movement in the brush a little less than 20 yards away. As she searched the bushes, she could see the form of a grizzly bear materialize, seemingly out of nowhere. The bear wasn't looking toward Raugland or any of the campers. It was walking right through camp and seemed blissfully unaware of the people only a few yards away. She knew this could be a dangerous situation, and the others needed to be alerted in a manner that didn't startle the grizzly. Raugland barked out, "Bear!" intended to be loud enough for the other people to hear, but not loud enough to alarm the grizzly. As Churchman was relieving himself, a grizzly leisurely strolled 12 yards in front of him. It hadn't seen him, and he was hoping it wouldn't. Guided by a primordial need to alert his companions, Churchman yelled out, "Bear!" and instinctively reached down to his belt for his bear spray, which had been placed into the gear pile to be loaded onto the boats. Raugland and Churchman's alerts rang out a split second apart, and both of them looking in different directions. Herzer was sharing a tent with Raugland and was a little over 20 yards behind her and about 25 yards behind Churchman. As an avid archery hunter, Herzer knew this was a very dangerous situation in which the group had found themselves. After yelling out, Churchman watched the sow grizzly turn her head in his direction. She barked a loud woof in alarm to his presence. The sow grizzly approached and attacked Churchman so quickly that he later likened it to being inside a giant hairy washing machine. Herzer watched as the grizzly closed the 12 yards between herself and Churchman. She didn't slow down as she got to him, slamming into him like an out-of-control vehicle. The impact of the bear sent Churchman flying backward, and as soon as he landed, he rolled onto his stomach and covered his neck with his hands to protect himself. Just to alleviate a little confusion, there were 2 grizzly bears involved. The sow was walking about 70 yards behind her cub. Raugland saw the 3-year-old cub first, and Churchman saw the sow. After plowing into Churchman, Herzer watched as the sow became a frenzy of snapping jaws and swiping paws. He thought that the sow was certainly going to kill Churchman, given the ferocity of her attack. The group had brought along 7 canisters of bear spray, which were all in some state of being packed for the float. There was no mention of anyone carrying a firearm, so it's assumed they didn't bring one. Without anything to defend himself, Herzer began running toward the bear as it attacked Churchman. All of his attention was focused on the grizzly, so he failed to see a willow root protruding from the ground. It tripped him up, sending him sprawling onto his face. Herzer didn't stay down long, though. In a flash, he was back up on his feet, sprinting toward the grizzly again, waving his arms and yelling. As he approached the grizzly, he remembered thinking to himself, "Okay, time to share the pain," as he completed what was the human version of a bluff charge. His options raced through his mind. Should I punch it or kick it? Finally deciding he would leap onto its back and try to distract it from killing Churchman, Herzer closed to within 5 yards. Just then something unexpected happened. The sow's head snapped in Herzer's direction. He must have seemed confusing and strange to her, with his yelling and waving his arms. She spun a few quick circles before disappearing back into the bushes, leaving a cloud of dust where she stood. Still jacked up on adrenaline, Herzer ran up to Churchman's side as he lay face down on the ground. There was no way he could have survived this, and Herzer prepared himself to see Churchman's horrific injuries. He wondered how to break the news to Churchman's wife and daughter, who nervously stood by only a few yards away. Placing his hands on Churchman's back, Herzer felt him inhale and exhale. He was breathing. Looking over Churchman's neck and head allayed more of his fears. He couldn't see any terrible gashes or crushed tissues. The signs so far were positive, until he could see a growing pool of blood on the ground beneath Churchman's face. Herzer tried to get Churchman to roll over so he could inspect his injuries. Fearful the bear had crushed his friend's face or swiped away part of his head, Herzer coaxed Churchman into rolling over, despite his objections. Churchman told him that the bear had bitten his stomach, and if he rolled over his guts might fall out. Finally giving in, Churchman revealed the gashes to his belly. The bear's teeth had torn through the skin and fat layers beneath it, but had somehow missed cutting further into his abdomen. His head had a big gash across the side of it, and it was the source of the blood pooling beneath him. Herzer knew that they had to get Churchman to medical attention right away. He ran to the rafts and started preparing a makeshift bed out of sleeping bags and pads on which to lay Churchman. Herzer watched Churchman as he began to sink into shock and had to fight it as well. As Herzer prepared the raft for Churchman, Lisa ran over and imparted some sound advice. She told him that Churchman may have internal injuries, and moving him could be very dangerous for him. She'd been trained in wilderness medicine and had a fully stocked first aid kit. Lisa brought organization to the panicked chaos. She directed Raugland to stand guard with one of the bear spray canisters, just in case the grizzlies returned. While Lisa took care of Churchman and Herzer, Scott grabbed Herzer's cell phone and ran to a small rise just above the riverbank, hoping to contact 911 dispatch for Teton County. 2 bars suddenly appeared on Herzer's cell phone screen, allowing just enough reception to complete the call. The 911 dispatcher ordered game wardens and a medical helicopter from Augusta to converge from 3 different directions on the location. The Mercy Flight helicopter service didn't have a pinpoint location, so they flew up the Sun River, searching for the victims. In what seemed like hours, but in reality was only 15 to 20 minutes, a helicopter landed on a small clearing on a nearby gravel bar. Medics hustled to Churchman's side and lifted him onto a litter to load him on the helicopter. As soon as he was aboard, a fentanyl drip caused the pain and shock to give way to an unfocused peace. The medical helicopter could fly Churchman out, but none of the others in the party. They quickly jumped into their boats and rowed for 12 hours to reach their departure point. After being admitted to the emergency room, Churchman's injuries were examined. The gash in his head was closed with sutures, as well as the punctures in his abdomen. Somehow none of his injuries were life-threatening. He was released to heal at home within 24 hours of admittance. Churchman's attack occurred during the height of the COVID lockdowns, so his wife and daughter were not allowed to visit him very much. Laura stated that one thing she'd learned from this bear attack is that her husband is very strong and gets stronger each day. Regarding the grizzly bears, officials determined that the sow's behavior was within expected behavior of a sow grizzly protecting herself and her cub from a perceived threat. No action was taken against her or her cub. About a month before Churchman's grizzly bear attack, on April 8, 2020, the first grizzly attack of the year occurred when a DuPayer resident was mauled a short distance from his house. After enduring the attack, he limped home and sought medical treatment for his injuries. His attack reveals important insights into how to defend yourself from a grizzly bear attack, and will be featured on our next episode, so make sure to catch it. Pictures of Churchman's injuries would not pass YouTube guidelines, so I've posted them on my Patreon page linked below. The Cub tier membership is only $3 a month, and your generosity goes a long way to help in creating content for Scary Bear Attacks. After reviewing the details of this attack, I'm left with a few questions for you. Are you surprised to hear of a grizzly bear attack in such an unexpected location? How did the sow and her cub wander so closely to the fishing camp and not know they were there? Do you think this attack would have happened if Churchman and Raugland had remained quiet? The next time you are in the woods and have to relieve yourself, will you be packing your bear spray or a firearm? I think I'll give it a shot. I'll gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.